Ah, the world of train movies. Films centered around our favorite hobby and mode of transportation. If you're a rail fan or grew up loving trains, chances are you have watched at least one movie about trains. We're very fortunate as rail fans in this regard because while our hobby isn't the biggest in the world, there are really a lot of great movies revolving around trains and railroads. Well, like any other film genre, however, there are also a number of train movies that I think are pretty bad. But what if I told you that one of the weirdest and cheapest and creepiest train movies is made by one of the biggest model train companies in the world? Let's talk about Lionelville Destination Adventure. Lionel's debut and so far only animated movie would come out in 2009 via a direct-to-home video release. The movie was called Lionelville Destination Adventure. It's funny, I actually remember seeing this movie available at my local hobby shop, rest in peace Hobbyworks, back in the day. But despite the fact that I watched just about every movie with a train in it growing up, I never watched this one. I think I know why, and we'll talk about that later. Anyway, the movie was essentially Lionel's attempt at creating a media franchise to market their products and to reach a younger audience and hopefully build a train interest among that younger crowd. I honestly forgot this movie existed until a full rip of it came up on my recommended videos recently, and I decided to watch it and see what I'd been missing out on all these years. And I'll be honest, I think it's pretty bad, but also pretty interesting to talk about. So that's why we're going to discuss my thoughts on this very peculiar, forgotten part of Lionel's history. Let's start with the plot. What exactly happens in this movie? The film starts out by showing us the main train character, a fictional engine called the World Cruiser, rolling through a poorly rendered countryside. Before long, we are shown that the world the train was driving through was actually a model train layout inside of the Lionel factory. And it is here that we meet most of our main characters. The main kids, Nancy and Bobby, their grandfather, who I can't remember the name of, Dr. ZW, nice, the evil science guy, and Nancy and Bobby's parents, who don't have a ton of screen time but are pretty important to the plot nonetheless. We learn here that Lionel is testing out the latest and greatest in their technology, actual moving people and real-life operations within the trains. Basically, the Lionelville world is a fully operating miniature world, kind of like how the miniature scenes are alive in the Night at the Museum movies. The World Cruiser engine we were introduced to earlier is going to be the flagship product for this line, and also has all of the technology inside of it that makes everything else in this little universe happen, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but whatever. The new product line is going to be displayed at a model train layout in Grand Central Station, which I'm assuming is supposed to be in New York, and we eventually are taken there. Also at Grand Central Station are two villain characters who work for the evil science guy, I also forgot their names, I'm sorry, who want to steal the chip from inside of the World Cruiser, but I'm really not sure why.
Quick, grab the case and let's get out of here.
It's bolted to the bench.
Nancy and Bobby's dad sees them trying to take the engine and rushes over to stop them.
Hey, you two! What are you doing?
But not before they open a blue tornado portal into the Lionelville universe. Everyone is able to escape getting sucked in except for the parents and the two villain henchmen. We then fast forward 8 years to present day, and Nancy and Bobby are teenagers. They live with their grandparents and dream about trying to find where their parents are. That day, they go out to their train layout, which I guess is technically Lionelville, and they see a billboard they recognize from their dream that night. Taking it as a sign from their parents, they sneak away to the Lionel factory to try to go back to Lionelville. Their granddad finds them there, introduces them to ZW, and the group make their way to a life-size model of that World Cruiser engine that ZW has been building in secret. After narrowly escaping the FBI or something like that, they completely rip off the train scene from Back to the Future 3 and teleport to Lionelville. Here, they travel to the main city, find some clues to find their parents, and
All aboard!
That's it. The movie's over. I know that was a lot to take in, so let's go back now and look at some of the elements of this movie more closely. I guess the main characters of this movie are Nancy and Bobby, the kids whose parents go missing. These are definitely supposed to be the cool, hip teens that the young audience wants to be like. Bobby wears a sick flannel, and him and his sister have a totally rad layout in their granddad's barn. Yeah!
Great, Grandpa, but can we work on the layout before we tackle our chores?
Basically, these are the kids Lionel wants to become diehard train enthusiasts and sell some products to. The supporting cast consists of the grandfather, who is a pretty standard, nice old guy, and honestly reminded of one of the sweet elderly men you'd meet at your train club. There's ZW, who's another good guy who helps the kids get to Lionelville. There's the evil science guy, who is probably the scariest looking in the group, and his henchmen, who I believe are supposed to be the comic relief duo, except they really aren't that funny. There's some other random characters too that show up here and there, but there isn't really much more to say. None of these characters really have any traits or personalities or anything to relate to, and that feeds into the bigger problems I think this movie has. But before we get to the funny part where I make fun of this twisted train masterpiece, let's run over a few things I appreciated about it. I thought it was pretty cute how many references to Lionel products and engines and names and things like that there were. At the age of 22, I kind of know pretty dang well that this is just because they were trying to sell us products, but if I was watching this as a young kid, I would have thought it was kind of cool to see those recognizable engines in an animated movie.
Look, the Allegheny!
There's the Empire State Express. There's the Santa Fe!
I also think the little nod to Joshua Lionel Cowan towards the end is really sweet too.
Cowan's Electric Toy Trains. Stick with it, son. I think you're on to something.
I actually like the idea behind the movie in general, trying to branch out and get kids interested in the model railroading hobby in a different way. I think it's cool Lionel wanted to try something out of the box that would appeal to someone besides the standard 40 and up crowd. So I commend them for that too. However, I don't think this movie did well at all, and we'll talk about that after I talk about the things I find really bad about this movie. This just isn't a good movie. It's not in any way. It doesn't check any box for a movie. And here's why. Substance. There really isn't any. There isn't a moral or any relatable characters or really nice visuals to look at. There just is no meat on this bone, no hook, nothing to grab onto. Why should I care about this movie? Visuals. The animation is terrifying, and I think that's the main reason I never watched it as a kid. One look at the DVD cover told me everything I needed to know. It's really hard to watch this movie and take it any kind of seriously. The humans are uncanny, the sets look unfinished, there's really weird lighting, and sometimes you can't even see what's happening properly. It's weird looking and quite frankly uncomfortable. Pacing. The movie is boring. The plot is really slow. Even the parts that are supposed to be intense are really drawn out, and it makes them uninteresting. The dialogue is not clever, it's not witty at any point. It's just a really slow watch, and it's not even that long of a movie to begin with. It's shameless. This movie is an hour-long Lionel advertisement. I don't think they're trying to hide that, but there are plenty of moments where I felt like a sucker watching this. Of course they name all these locomotive models you can go buy. Of course they show a Lionel Legacy controller. Of course the kids are like the main characters and they're excited about trains and they want to go buy trains.
There's the Empire State Express.
And I get it. The movie exists to be an advertisement. But a little more subtlety couldn't have hurt, I don't think. And the final and biggest issue I take with this movie is that it doesn't conclude. There's no ending. They leave you on a cliffhanger for a sequel that doesn't exist. If you watch this movie, you basically waste an hour of your life because there isn't an ending to the plot you just followed and tried to get invested in. If I bought this movie as a kid, I know that would have really annoyed me, or more so confused me. Why did I just watch something that didn't have an ending? The lack of a sequel, despite the movie teasing one at the end, is what tells me this movie didn't make them any money. And I'm not surprised that it didn't. But despite all those flaws I just talked about, I will say that I appreciate Lionel stepping out of the box and trying something different to get younger people into the model railroading hobby. What do you think about this movie? Did you watch it growing up? Was I too hard on it? Is this guy going to show up in your dreams tonight? Let me know in the comments down below, and as always, thank you for watching.